Hello, it's Monday again, which means it is time to do our next chapter of Skunk and Badger. So it is chapter 6. I'm in my Phantom of the Opera t-shirt. It's been a really long time since I've seen it, like over a year. But it's coming back in June, so it's been uncancelled, so that's good. So now you're all happy too. So anyway, Skunk and Badger chapter 6 is quite a long one. So all you've got to do is literally just like sit and listen to me read it. Okay, so remember, we are finding out what the skunk is going to surprise Badger with. Badger did not wait long for the surprise. First came a sound. It was an awful sound. Badger thought a tiny elephant had gotten stuck in one of his ears. It trumpeted. Badger jumped and pounded the right side of his head. He pounded the left. Then Badger realised the trumpeting wasn't in his ears. Groaning, he followed the sound out of the kitchen and down the front hallway and jerked open the front door. Skunk stood on the stoop's landing with his back to Badger. He blew into an orange stick. Skunk turned around and removed the stick from his mouth. "Hello, Badger!" The sound exited Badger's ears like corks forced from bottles. Pop, pop. Badger crumpled onto the stone parapet and panted, rubbing his ears. Skunk pocketed the stick and skidded to the edge of the stoop. He held a paw over his eyes, surveying the neighbourhood. "Any minute now! Any minute, any minute, any minute!" Badger followed Skunk's gaze, expecting to see red-faced neighbours also massaging their ears. But no neighbours appeared. In fact, the neighbourhood looked as it always looked. Meadow across the street, sidewalk to the mailbox, brownstones lined up like dominoes ascending Quigley Hill. Skunk leapt and pointed to the south. "Ahoy! All off!" Badger saw an odd, upright bird with feathered breeches. Skunk leaned towards Badger and whispered, "Named after the Russian Count Alexei Grigoriev Orlov, but she is not Russian, she is Iranian." Badger stood to get a better look. With every step the Orlov took, feathers shook, muffs, cows' beards and shaggy eyebrows. The Orlov slowly turned. Badger felt appraised. Left, right, left, right. Then the Orlov fluffed her feathers, stuck her beak in the air and made a sharp cry. "Roo-ree!" "What kind of bird is that?" Badger asked. "Chicken! Chickens are the only ones who hear the chicken whistle," Skunk replied. Badger thought of the orange stick and blinked. "You don't hear anything when you blow it, not even a little." "Of course not, I'm not a chicken." Badger is not a chicken, Badger thought. Badger would have said something, but Skunk hopped and pointed. "Look, over there and there." "Oh!" Badger's jaw went slack. The landscape had gone chicken. Under, over, behind, chickens. Across the street, in the park near the mailbox, chickens. The wattles, the cones, the bright red faces. Oblongs, round, tiny and shrub size. Jersey giant, said Skunk. There were chickens strolling on stalk legs. 3 kosher moos on the right, said Skunk. Chickens wearing bell-bottoms, plumed berets and flippers all made feathers. The chickens came in colours. A purple chicken. Some were mottled, some speckled and some sparkled. Everywhere Badger looked, the earth moved with a chicken beat, syncopated in herks and jerks, and this eye, then that eye, then step, step, step per peck. On the brownstone stoop, Badger swayed on his feet. "Are these all chickens?" "Hen chickens," said Skunk, misunderstanding him. "Hens get things done. Hens work together. I do not speak ill of a chicken, but Badger, too many roosters are trouble. A rooster wants all the attention. A rooster fights and claws and pecks. Some roosters do not know when to stop cock-a-doodle-doodling. Even the hens think it is best to keep roosters to a minimum. I did tell Larry, though. Larry is different." Badger pointed at a group of 4 fleshy sunbaked birds and crossed his arms. "Those are turkeys." "Chickens, Transylvanian naked neck chickens, Badger." Then Badger noticed that the chickens, all of them, were coming closer and closer and closer. Badger stumbled backwards and clutched at the stone of his house. "Triassic, Jurassic sandstone," he mumbled out of habit, his thoughts finally on the approaching chicken tidal wave. Skunk rushed into the sea of feathers. "Hello, hello," he yelled. "So nice to meet you." Badger watched Skunk greet chicken after chicken. Then the Orlov stopped and apparently told some sort of joke. "Orangefoot who?" Badger heard Skunk say. And then you can see here, and it says, "The landscape has gone chicken." "Bockety bock, 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 bock," said the Orlov. "Ha, did you hear that, Badger?" Badger had heard bock, bock. "Not that funny," Badger shrugged. The chicken gathered around Skunk turned their gaze on Badger. Bock, said the tiny orange ball of feathers. Bock, bock, said a speckled brown job. Bock, 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 said the Orloff. Skunk looked briefly at Badger, then turned to the chickens. You are right. I do not think Badger understands your dialect. What dialect? Badger huffed. Skunk gave Badger a concerned look. The chickens confirmed. The speckled brown said, Bock, 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 bock. Skunk waved his paws. No, he is smart enough. Badger knows a lot about rocks. Badger gasped. Smart enough? For chickens? Shh, said Skunk. You will speak clearly in no time at all, I promise. The chickens will like you, and you will like the chickens. Chickens are good to know. Then, to Badger's horror, Skunk pushed past him and opened the brownstone door. Story time, he yelled. Wait, said the Badger, but it was too late. Chickens rushed for the door with the force of a pressure hose. It had happened so quickly. Badger and Skunk stood in the doorway of Badger's rock room and gawked. In one flick of a chicken head, the rock room had been overthrown in a chicken coup d'etat. This wasn't Badger's rock room, this was the Wild West of Chicken, the saloon at Deadbug End, and the last stand at Corncob Corral. The chickens chattered and then burst forth in a squawk and a clap of wings. The ones that flew took to the air. Some of these chickens perched on the chandelier, which now swung like a swing set. Badger's mouth opened and closed, opened and closed. Skunk glanced at him. I do not usually get this many chickens, he explained. The most until now was 16. That was once, only once. Skunk looked at Badger and kept talking. I did not know that chickens like rock rooms, he added. Usually they go into the kitchen first. Skunk peeped at Badger and hastily looked away. Yes, chickens continually surprise. Surprise, mumbled Badger. Skunk kept talking. But after you have blown the chicken whistle, it would be rude not to invite them in for a story. Badger thrust a paw towards the chicken outbreak in his rock room. Rude? What about this? Skunk nodded. It is good that rocks are hard. Then Skunk froze. Oh dear, he said softly. Badger turned. What? Skunk gave Badger a swift smile. You do not have any gravel, do you? Why? Chickens eat gravel. Digestive aid, or so chickens say. Gravel is rock. Chickens eat rock? Badger took in the bookshelves filled with boxes of rocks, the rock table, the fireplace mantel, all covered in chickens. Skunk took one look at Badger and said, I will make the popcorn. Ah! Roared Badger as he careened into the chickens. Skunk popped popcorn. Badger shut, boxed up and locked. He growled continually. Badger ended up spread over his rock table, clamped to his rock stool, batting at the Jersey giant who seemed determined to perch on the gooseneck of Badger's rock light. When the Jersey giant finally gave up, Badger let his head plop on the table. Badger stayed like this until Skunk clunked a bowl of popcorn in front of him. For sustenance, you have wilted, said Skunk. Badger lifted his head in time to see Skunk bearing bowls of popcorn disappear into a whirlwind of chickens. Badger took a pawful of popcorn, chewed and sat up. He grabbed another pawful, then another. That's when he saw her. The tiny orange ball of feathers stood next to his pencil mug. But Badger began to spit polish his rock light, watching her out of the corner of his eye. A yellow foot appeared from the puff of feathers. It extended out slowly. Quick as a wink, she set the foot down, lowered the other yellow foot beside it, and puffed out her feathers. He put his head next to her tiny puffed body. I'm smart, he growled. The ball of feathers pecked hard. Ow! Said Badger, patting his snout. Bok, bok, said the puff of feathers. She slowly extended her head out of the orange feathers and stared. Then she did a two-step towards Badger's popcorn. Bok! Ha! Badger laughed. He reached into the bowl and put a piece of popcorn in front of her. Then he sat back and watched. The tiny orange hen barely gave him a glance. She sat up and ate the corn. Bok! Badger set another piece of popcorn in front of her. I do rock science. Bok, bok, said the tiny orange hen, pecking at the popcorn. Badger got a big pawful and set it in front of her. Rock science takes persistence, determination and character. Also, you have to be very, very, very smart. Bok, 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 bok. The tiny chicken hen tossed a piece of popcorn back and gulped. Badger ate several more pawfuls of popcorn. When Badger saw the tiny orange hen had finished eating hers, he reached for a pawful. Bok! Badger stopped mid-reach. Bok! Said the hen again. Badger saw two tiny eyes peer up at him. Then the tiny orange hen hopped into the crook of one of Badger's arms. So light, thought Badger. The tiny orange hen sighed, tucked her beak under her wing and went to sleep. Oh, said Badger. Cock-a-gay-gay-gay. A grizzled rooster rose stiffly from the geodes in the fireplace. That bird looked partially plucked. Larry, thought Badger. Thank you, Larry, came Skunk's voice. Badger turned and saw Skunk sitting on the floor holding a book with an embroidered cover. Bog, 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 the chickens murmured. The tiny orange hen stirred and adjusted herself in Badger's arms. Skunk opened the book. Chicken Little the Mighty, he read. He paused, then looked directly at Badger. To catch you up, something fell from above onto Chicken Little. It was only something like a leaf, but it frightened Chicken Little, and she jumped to the biggest possible conclusion. The sky is falling, she told everyone. A lot of other birds believed her. These birds followed Chicken Little straight into the den of Foxy Loxy. Luckily, Chicken Little and her friends escaped unharmed, but Chicken Little's reputation was ruined. Skunk turned to the book. He began to read, his voice filling the room. As Badger listened, the story seemed to unfold in front of him. It went like this. Humbled by the sky is falling fiasco, Chicken Little left on a journey. She was determined to make up for what she had done. I will not return until I find something that makes a difference, Chicken Little said. It was quite a journey. Chicken Little travelled through bands of starlings that leapt from the leaf litter and frogs that chorused to lead her astray. She snuck past lines of battling army ants and hid in damp ditches. Finally, she met a wise green parakeet. The parakeet gave her a magic kernel of corn. Eat the kernel in time of need, the parakeet told her. Traversing the mountain glacier, Chicken Little lost a claw to frostbite. Then a crust of snow gave way with nothing but air underneath it. It was a crevasse, a crack in the glacier, half hidden by a blown-over snow. In the crevasse, Chicken Little fell. She turned into the air, falling. In desperation, she flapped the wings, and that she'd been told were worthless. The wings worked. All well enough. Chicken Little skidded onto the other side of the crevasse and dug her remaining claws into the crusty snow. The effort about did her in. Chicken Little lay on the ice panting, trying to remember which pocket held her magic corn kernel. Where was it? She could not seem to find it, and here Chicken Little faced several facts. Bantam hens were not made for mountaineering. Also, a chicken on ice is soon a dead chicken. If it were not for the family of mountain peakers dragging her into the warm straw-filled den, Chicken Little would be no more. The peakers saved Chicken Little's life. In return, Chicken Little left the peakers 3 eggs. The eggs confused the peakers. Peakers are small rabbits and only eat plants. What would they do with 3 big eggs? There's a story about what happened to the eggs, which we shall tell another time, said Skunk. Bok, said the Jersey giant. Okay, back to the story, said Skunk. Later, Chicken Little would be grateful that she had not used her magic kernel of corn on the glacier. If she had used it on the glacier, it would have only served her. But waiting, Chicken Little was able to use it for the greater good of all the chickens, said Skunk. More adventures followed. Chicken Little trawled further and further and further. Use the kernel, Badger thought again and again. Then one day, Chicken Little saw a figure at the far end of a windless lake. It was a woman in hiking shoes and a herringbone check wool blazer with patches on the elbows. Chicken Little saw the woman right in the sand with her walking stick. When Chicken Little arrived at the lake's far end, the woman was gone, but her markings in the sand were still there. It was Chicken Scratch. Yes, the most ancient of chicken languages. Words, numbers, symbols. Chicken Little read electron energy exponent, wave number, unit length, integer, electromagnetic radiation in a vacuum, principal quantum numbers of the orbitals, the constant. There were symbols too divided and multiplied by infinity, greater than, less than, equal to, coefficients, decimals. That sounds like a mathematical equation, thought Badger. He nearly dropped the tiny orange hen. That night, Chicken Little considered what she had read in the sand. The next morning, Chicken Little knew if she could apply the chicken scratch, it would be something that made a difference. Chicken Little gobbled down the magic corn kernel. This is how she brought back the quantum leap, said Skunk. The quantum leap is not a leap or a hop or a hurdling, but a disappearance into one place and a reappearance in another. The quantum leap made the chicken's world safer. Chicken Little became known as Chicken Little the Mighty. That's how they do it? Science, thought Badger, looking at the chickens in wonder. Skunk closed the book with a thump. The end. The chickens broke into squalls. Bok, bok, bok. The tiny orange hen in Badger's arms tapped him with her beak. Badger nodded at her. That was a good story, he thought, sighing. Adventure and science made the best stories. Now he looked around his rock room. There were chickens on the floor, chickens on the bookshelves, chickens on the rock tumbler and the windowsills. He looked at the tiny orange hen in his arms. Orange like an agate, he thought, and happiness flooded through him. This is the best night of my life. A speckled chicken popped and fluttered. Bog, bog, bog. With that, Badger's rock room drained of chickens. The tiny orange hen scrabbled from Badger's arms and plunged into the burbling feathered surge. Badger looked at Skunk. Skunk grinned. He gestured at Badger to follow. Badger followed. The moon! The moon filled the porch end to end. Oh, said Badger. Skunk sighed. For a long while, Badger and Skunk stood side by side on the porch watching the moon rise. The chickens had gathered in the yard. Badger's dried-out garden bloomed with feathery puffs and tufts, crowns and tassels. Chickens are beautiful, whispered Badger. Skunk nodded. Yes. But there are at least 100 chickens. That is too many chickens in North Twist. I will have to be careful with my chicken whistle. Ha! Laughed Badger. Ha! Laughed Skunk. Without warning, the chickens shook themselves off, formed a line and strolled past Skunk and Badger into the brownstone. Badger looked at Skunk. Skunk shrugged. There is popcorn left. Then Skunk sneezed. Colours burst off Skunk's nose like fireworks. Oh, Badger stepped back. Skunk smiled and rubbed his eyes. Moon dust gets everywhere. Skunk pointed at Badger's face. Eyebrows. Then Skunk followed the chickens inside. Badger rubbed a paw over his eyebrows and swore he saw a dust with a shimmer drift in front of his eyes. As he entered the brownstone again, Badger thought he could not remember a more magical evening. The doorbell rang. I'll get it, yelled Skunk. So a bit of a surreal chapter, that one. We'll find out who is at the doorbell actually after half term. We'll do a recap lesson so we can kind of remember what's been happening. And then we will go on from there. So hopefully, fingers crossed, if we can get back to school by March the 8th, we will be on chapter 10 then. So you must keep listening to these. You must keep up with them because obviously we won't have time to read it all again once we get back to school.